This is definitely the Apollo missions. It actually says Apollo 13, Apollo XIII. Can't you see that this image of Apollo on this badge matches the Greek god Apollo? So why did they choose to put this image of Apollo on here if it wasn't sacred to Freemasonry? Keep in mind, Masons are the ones that said we put the first man on the moon. They planted their flag there. They're a religion. Buzz Aldrin and the Omega. Okay, so we've got this OK symbol or 666 over the eye. The 666 was associated to the beast in the Bible. The beast was associated to men that are double-minded. If someone's double-minded, doesn't that mean that they're a liar? So wasn't there all this controversy that they didn't land on the moon and didn't land at the moon at all? Is this symbol showing a man in the Bible that's double-minded? I'm sure Masons would know. If you take a look, you see Buzz Aldrin and the Omega. Now, we already saw he has the Apollo symbol on, and Apollo points us back to Satan, the one that fires the fiery darts. But then we also get this Omega symbol. What's the Omega symbol all about? Why do symbols of the devil always appear within Freemasonry? Look at the Omega symbol. Look at the MGM lion, for example. And here we see a lion inside of the Omega symbol. That's exactly what you're looking at. I found a company, it's called Omega Lion and Co. And it looks just like the MGM logo with a lion inside the Omega symbol. Now, do you think that MGM makes movies about space? Do you think Walt Disney made movies about space? Do you think that NASA, Walt Disney, and MGM, if they wanted to paint together some kind of a reality to confuse you, they could do so pretty effectively? Just a thought. But check this out. Now that we're on the symbol of the Omega, and we happen to see there's a lion inside of the Omega symbol, do you know who this lion is? 1 Peter 5:8. Be sober-minded and alert. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. So first they give us the Apollo missions. That's the Greek god Apollo with the fiery darts, which is Satan in the Bible. And then they give us the Omega symbol. Don't know why they put the Omega there, but the Omega symbol points us to the lion. And the lion is the devil who roars and looks for someone to devour. What a coincidence. So take a look at the front of this magazine with this astronaut, or someone who did not go into space, astronaut. You see Buzz Aldrin, a Freemason, doing a very similar symbol to that of Prince Charles. Now, if we take a look inside this Calgary Masonic Hall, we can see in the background, above the 5-pointed star, which we know is a symbol for Venus. Venus makes a 5-pointed star after 8 years. Venus is Lucifer. Lucifer is the devil. Above this 5-pointed star, we have a picture of the Queen of England. Here's the Queen of England. She's wearing red. It looks like her helper is wearing blue. Red and blue, that's the sun pillar and the moon pillar of Freemasonry. But look no farther. Her helper on her belt seems to have the compass and square and the 5-pointed star. Now, the compass and square is the symbol of Freemasonry, but beside it, we see this 5-pointed star. And here on a temple, we can actually see the 5-pointed star positioned inside of the compass and square. And here's a picture of the Queen at her Jubilee. Now, the Jubilee is a pretty important event, but happen to notice this. On the Queen's Jubilee, she decided to wear what? Well, first off, it was on June, which is the 6th month, 9 day, that's a 6-9. That's an important number in Masonry. And if you take a look, this symbol she's wearing is from the Order of Malta. So one beneath the top, where it says the Order of the Temple, the highest point on the Masonic ladder, at least with the York Rite, there we can see the symbol the Queen is wearing. Isn't that interesting? All coincidental, I'm sure. But we have Prince Edward, the Duke of Kent, so in other words, the Queen's cousin. He's born 9th of October, 1935. He was initiated into the Alpha Lodge. So that's really interesting. I just saw Buzz Aldrin with the Omega symbol, and this guy's initiated into the Alpha Lodge. And then we have Christ calling himself the Alpha and Omega. Do you think that Masons with a Bible sitting in the middle of an altar in the middle of the room would know these details? Or do you think they're completely naive to them? He was installed as the 10th Grand Master of the United Grand Lodge of England, 1967. So all the Masons, they have to bow in the rank of this individual, the Duke of Kent, the Queen's cousin, as he is their current Grand Master. And we can see him in his Masonic garb. As a matter of fact, we can see, if we look at his medals, one of his medals, which is a light blue, a red, and then like a darker blue, and it's a ribbon, we can actually see the 6-pointed star, the star that you see in Judaism, but also in Hinduism. And then we can see on this magazine, Freemasonry Today, celebrating 300 years, stronger together. You can see these 3 chairs set up, which means he must be the worshipful master at the ceremony, which means it's probably oriented towards the east. That's away from God. Everyone has their backs towards God in Freemasonry. They're all facing the Duke of Kent. And the Duke of Kent is sitting in this middle chair where normally you would see the symbol of the Baphomet, the goat. The Bohemian Grove. In the Bohemian Grove, you can see a lot of people come out, or at least world leaders, similar to the world leaders you'd probably see at this climate summit. So this UK climate change, COP26, the same people would go to this particular ceremony here. But this ceremony is not open to the public. Here's an image of it. And we have this giant owl idol. And we can see there's an altar that's on fire where our leaders, our world leaders, perform a mock human sacrifice. Don't worry, it's just a fake human sacrifice, but they perform a mock human sacrifice deep, deep, deep in the Bohemian Grove. And they do this in front of this sacred owl. And the owl, some have called it Moloch, it may also be called Minerva. Regardless, though, we can see that this is some kind of a religious ceremony because in the front right, close to the altar, we can see some kind of a Catholic mitra because one of the individuals wearing this cape is definitely wearing a mitra or mitre on their head. And this is where world leaders go to do a mock human sacrifice in Mother Nature every year in the summer near San Francisco. Let's take a look at the word climate change and figure out why they chose this word, because originally it was global warming, and then there was this whole controversy with Lord Monckton, and then suddenly after around 2011, 2012, they changed it from global warming to climate change. Now, Masons are very big into gematria, and we've seen that there's quite a bit of Masonic symbolism following these climate change summits because, of course, the United Nations. And then we see the word climate change adds up to exactly 47 in septenary. Septenary is a form of numerology that would be familiar by Freemasons. The reason why is because it's based on the number 7. So climate change adds up to 47. And funny enough, when you look at the compass and square, we look at the builder's square is 90 degrees. It makes a right angle. But what are the angles between the 2 prongs of the compass? Or what is the angle between the 2 points of the compass? If you've ever done geometry, you can take a protractor and take the protractor, use the compass, and then measure the degree in which the compass is open. The compass in Freemasonry is open at exactly 47 degrees. So does climate change have something to do with some of the aims of Freemasons? I would say it's quite likely. If you take a look, you can see the top half of the compass is 47 degrees. And as I mentioned, the bottom half, the builder's square, is 90. If we take 47 degrees plus 90 degrees, our total is 137. So I'd assume that 137 must be an important number in Freemasonry as well. So what's the 137 about? Let's take a look at this website. It's called New Phytologist Foundation. Phylotaxis is the golden angle optimal for light capture? Phylotactic patterns are some of the most conspicuous in nature. To create these patterns, plants must control the divergence angle between the appearance of successive organs, sometimes within the fraction of a degree. The most common angle is the Fibonacci, or golden angle, and its prevalence has led to the hypothesis that it has been selected by evolution as optimal for plants with respect to some fitness benefits, such as light capture. Okay, so phyllotaxis is talking about when the plants tilt their leaves to capture light from the sun. So the leaves of plants, if you're a gardener, you probably know this, the leaves of plants move, and they do so to capture the sun. But they move to a degree of 137.5 degrees. So if I take the compass and the square of Freemasonry, add the 90 degrees and add the 47 degrees, which is the word climate change, add those together, I get almost the exact number of how plants extend their leaves to capture light from the sun. These pagan orders worship nature, not God. This is why the Bible said there were people who knew God, the God of Israel, and there were people that were following things that were not God. They were worshiping the sun, the moon, and the stars, the host of heaven. Well, we can clearly see some symbolism of sun worship going on here. So climate change, you're looking at the real reason behind it. See this fire? See the owl? The owl shows up in the Bible too. As a matter of fact, did you know that there's a Prince Charles Masonic Lodge? I mean, Prince Charles is giving a speech to the UN. I showed you all this Masonic symbolism. There is a Prince Charles Masonic Lodge. But interestingly enough, unlike many of the royal family, so unlike the Duke of Kent, unlike the Queen of England, Prince Charles is actually not a Mason. This was published in 1998 in the New York Times. The Nation, who? Me, a Mason? Britain sees threat. The current Prince Charles turned down an invitation to join. So we know the Duke of Kent, he's the Grand Master. We know that the Queen has some kind of affiliation to Freemasonry, but here we can see that Prince Charles, he does not. But here's something interesting. In Mystic Masonry, we read this before. Every soul must work out his own salvation and take the kingdom of heaven by force. Salvation by faith and vicarious atonement were not taught as now interpreted by Jesus, nor are these doctrines taught in the exoteric scriptures. They are later and ignorant perversions of the original doctrines in the early church, as in the secret doctrine. Remember, Satan has a secret. There was not one Christ for the whole world, but a potential Christ in every man. So last week we learned there was a mystery of God. The mystery of God is Jesus Christ. We learned there was a mystery of Satan. And the mystery of Satan is a secret doctrine where each individual comes to the awareness that they themselves are God. They have Christ inside of them. But of course, if we find that Prince Charles is not a Mason, then he wouldn't necessarily believe this. However, Charles is no stranger to Masonic symbolism. He's doing something very similar that we saw Buzz Aldrin doing, who we know is a Mason, except Buzz Aldrin was doing the symbol over his right eye. We see that